Hey everyone, Mookie here, and today we're going to SHOT Show 2025 to see only the coolest guns in the show. We've got some great interviews getting all the cool details on some of these projects, like the VSS, the PP-19 Bizon, and the SVD. Some of our friends are at the show this year showing off some really cool projects, and I'm excited to share those with you, as well as all the other cool stuff that we saw at SHOT this year. So, without further ado, let's go to Vegas. Our journey starts in the city of Las Vegas, a massive city that is expensive to live in and full of normies, but has a cool firearms community, I suppose. The monorail is the best way to get around here. Booking a place near the rail was convenient as it had a station right at the convention itself. The show itself was massive, and there's no physical way to see everything at the show, but we managed. To start things off, we went over to the B&T booth to hang out with the guys there, and the guys over at BSD, who were stationed at the B&T booth with their VSS project. This is a project we have been following for some time, as on this channel, we are huge fans of the VSS. And the BSD project is one of the most developed VSS projects to date.
All right, so this started out with, I've had many clients ask me to build their parts kits that they somehow acquired, no idea how. Well, over time, as the parts kits have been assembled, I took the opportunity to 3D scan a lot of the parts, and over time compiled files with all the 3D models of the different pieces, and cross-referenced them with other designs and other online images and whatnot to make sure that we had a very accurate representation of the original design. So over time, once I had a complete CAD file, I said, you know what, why don't I start making it myself? And there was nobody else trying to do it, that nobody else really wanted to do it. That's pretty much how it started. Now, as far as challenges and whatnot, the receivers were very difficult to machine. Modern manufacturers nowadays, they have their bread and butter. They don't want to break down their machines to do anything new. Unfortunately, it's a shame that a larger manufacturer doesn't see the value in potentially investing a little bit of time to create a new product that can pay off in the long run. So we had to get creative on how to do it ourselves. So ultimately, we ended up making the receivers that we needed with the bolt lugs for the original design. B&T was nice enough to 3D print the suppressor for us. In the amount of time that we had before the show started, they did not 3D print sight bases on here. The future examples will be 3D printed on top, so that's not really a concern for anybody who wants a clone correct version. Same with the bracketry for the folding stock. It doesn't, the reason why we decided to not put the bracket into the receiver was simply for the fact of why manufacture two different receivers just to put a folding stock on. That doesn't make sense from a manufacturer's point of view. We would rather create the same receiver that we can use on multiple platforms and then allow an adapter where you can swap your grip from a folding stock to a hard stock as well. It doesn't make sense from a manufacturing point of view to make two separate receivers just to put a stock on. Those are the two biggest things that we've heard some remarks about. No big deal, it's nothing to change. Besides that, this is true to the original design with the linear hammer striker system inside, closer to exactly what we're going to produce. This was this one here was more of a prototype example to prove that the concept would work with AK magazines in 300 blackout. Also, to simplify manufacturing by using AR-15 carrier that's been highly modified, and a hammer-fired system. The barrel inside this one is also an AR-15 barrel that is modified to fit into the receiver, and that way it works with the AR-15, a standard AR-15 bolt head. It allows you to maintain the aesthetics of the gun, for the most part, but allow more modern functionality and ease of manufacturing. Because this is a highly prototyped example, yes, the carrier would end up looking more like the AS-VAL with a flat metal surface like here, and then just modified for the AR bolt head. We're still on the fence about if we are going to really produce with the AR-15 parts inside, because we did successfully produce the original example, so we're still on the fence about that. Same with the magazines, but it shouldn't be. I mean, it's not a big deal to just, to change our thought process on it. So, well, guys, this is the VSS, the BSD VSS and 300 Blackout. I'm Brice, and I hope you get one if you like it. I think you'll really be pleased with it.
It should be noted that the examples showcased by BSD were not entirely complete. For instance, the AS-VAL configured firearm featured some components borrowed from a client, sourced from a blank fire Malott parts kit. The other was configured with AR-15 components as a proof of concept, but did not have what would be the final production parts installed, which is why it was fairly rough around the edges. As a diehard purist with a VSS of my own, I do hope the final iteration will be closer to the originals. And Brice knows our opinion on this subject as well. He has indicated that if the market demands it, he will make it. Unlike the Malott blank kits, which have incorrect style screw-on barrel shrouds, BSD has properly engineered a quick detach shroud much like the original. And this does give me hope, especially since we had asked prior to shot if he would change the design to a quick detach like the originals. We also spoke with one of the engineers at BSD, who, when asked about the AS-VAL folding stock adapter, mentioned that he has already designed a folding latch that more closely resembles the original, which is great to hear. This updated design will sit closer to the receiver and be less offset compared to the example on display. He also indicated the adapter will accommodate for a removable grip, allowing for an original style AS-VAL grip or other style grips if desired. The folks at BSD have said that they will be starting out with only a milled style dust cover with rails. While similar to the VSS-M, it won't be a clone copy of the VSS-M railed dust cover. We might have persuaded them to consider producing a milled dust cover without rails, designed to resemble the original more closely. Additionally, Brice mentioned they may manufacture stamped dust covers if there is sufficient market demand. There's been plenty of debate online about whether this project will succeed, as it seems every VSS project is doomed to fail. I've now seen many, even projects I supported, ultimately end in failure. However, Brice seems determined to prove the skeptics wrong this time around, and I genuinely hope he can make it happen. It should also be noted that there is a lesser-known VSS project out there by Dmitry Chichayev. Compared to VSD's progress, Dmitry's updates have been sparse, and details about the project are thin. I do believe he is doing a small run of guns or single one-offs for select clients. Recently, he has posted fairly complete examples on his Instagram, and a proper AS-VAL style receiver, but I don't know his timelines or if he will ever be doing full production runs of these rifles. As a B&T dealer, we couldn't pass up the chance to check out the new TP9 Pro on display. This updated version of the TP9 features a significant design change. A side charging handle replaces the original rear charging handle. While the lower receiver and internal components remain unchanged, the upper has been redesigned to accommodate the new charging handle placement. One notable change is that the updated rail and integrated sights sit higher over the bore compared to the original. However, B&T addressed this by incorporating a recessed section in the center of the rail, allowing an aimpoint acro to sit lower on the upper. This design enables a perfect co-witness between the acro and the integrated sights. The primary drawback of this setup is the limited compatibility within that recessed space, as the aimpoint acro is the only optic that fits without being mounted higher. Personally, I still favor the previous model for its classic MP9 aesthetic. That said, B&T has assured us that they plan to continue producing both models unless market demand shifts significantly in favor of one. B&T has also indicated to us that they are updating the designs for most of their suppressors to transition their production to utilize 3D printing technology. Additive manufacturing as a production method was a major trend that I noticed taking SHOT Show by storm this year. Next up, we have one of the standout projects at SHOT Show this year, a faithful recreation of the PP-19 Bizon, brought to life by our friends at LM Ironwerks. We've been in touch with them about this project for quite some time, and as previously mentioned, we're planning to dedicate an entire video to this firearm, putting it through its paces in detail. While there have been several attempts to recreate the PP-19 over the years, none have successfully resulted in a fully realized retail product until now. Unlike some of the other products on our list, LM Ironwerks not only had production rifles on their displays, but also inventory ready to go. This was a collaborative work with AK Builder, who hosted their guns this year. And if there's any company I trust behind a project, it is them.
Okay, so this is our PP-19 Bizon. It's a bit of a passion project of mine. We started with a few parts, a front trunnion, a front sight block, a mag ring, and a rear trunnion. Got a hold of a receiver, forced some KP9 parts into the gun, got it running, and then I called a few people to try to get more parts kits going. I had no luck at all. Curtis at AK Builder, I eventually called him for some barrels and some receivers, and he was just like, you know, why don't we make the whole damn thing? And so that's what we did. Starting from scratch, we reverse engineer pretty much the whole gun. 9x19, 53 round magazine. We print the magazines in-house. All the parts are billet 4140 steel. The receivers are even folded and heat treated by Curtis. Really, we spared no expense and cut as few corners as possible. We made a few concessions on when we say clone correct, we really took 3 different iterations of the PP-19 Bizon that we found pictures of online, and then mashed the 3 versions together to get the best version that we felt looked the most Russian or clone correct, I guess. So when I tell people it's clone correct, it's not one version, it's all the versions kind of like mashed together in my favorite form. That's the gist of the firearm. The magazine we print mostly in-house. It's PA12 CF nylon. We sous vide them in vegetable oil so they get a little bit of love afterwards. It increases the strength. There's a 316 printed stainless steel elevator inside that also helps drive a little bit. But most of the gun we had manufactured specifically for us to our specs. Even the handguards and dust covers, I reached out to the manufacturer for those and was like, hey, let's make some changes, and they were all about it. This is really just a huge pet project for us, and we, like I said, we spared no expense and very little time. This was my life for the better part of the last 16 months. So yeah, and I'm real proud of it.
I really love the small details they put into this clone. While many clones try and make things close enough, LM really paid attention to small details, like the muzzle brake, early style sling loop, PP-19 style side rail, instead of a commercial side rail, and even went through the effort to relocate the charging handles on the bolt carriers to the proper position for the PP-19. Needless to say, I can't wait to get my hands on one. So next on our list is none other than the AKB-23 by our friends over at ALY KAUFMAN. Spencer, the man behind this project, is one of our oldest friends, going back more than a decade since the olden days of internet shenanigans, milsim games, and now at SHOT Show, displaying a super cool recreation of the L85 that doesn't suck. The idea behind this project is to be able to use the BRN 180 uppers, or any AR-18 derivative upper that is on an AR-15 footprint, and mate that upper to his lower to create a really cool L85 clone. While it's not a one-to-one recreation of the SA-80, it certainly looks the part, and above all else, it will be much more functional and reliable. Spencer was able to create familiar controls with a push-through safety near the trigger, an AR-15 magwell and mag release, and all other upper controls are the same as the BRN 180, like the right side charging. The firearm can be optioned with the SA-80 style handguards as well, and while there may be some people who want the modern rails for practicality, I am definitely getting mine with the L85 style handguards. While this may not be a true SA-80 clone, it is a really affordable conversion kit that anyone can put together themselves, and much more affordable than any of the other clone projects we saw at SHOT Show. This is one of the guns I am most excited about and can't wait for its release. Next up, we have none other than a project to introduce a fully US-made SVD onto the American market. This project caught us by surprise. They were tucked away in a little corner in the basement. There have been so many attempts at recreating the SVD in the US. None of them have panned out, and it almost seemed like anyone who tried were cursed with development issues. None of the prior attempts have gotten as far as this project has. They have almost every part of the gun made and on display. It is a very faithful reproduction of the original SVD-63, with the original Type 1 receiver with the lightning cuts, the dust cover with the deep style indents, the proper 24-inch barrel, and even the 3D printed bolt carrier they had on display had the proper Type 1 tabbed style tail and double rounded and drilled out carrier like the originals. They did make a couple changes, like using bolts in some places where rivets were typically used, a threaded barrel that will be able to take a muzzle device patterned off the original. The dust covers will not be ribbed at this time due to jig costs, and the front sight will be separate from the muzzle brake. The front sights they had did not have bayonet lugs on them, but they said that is something that they can manufacture, and I do believe most people will prefer to have a bayo lug on their front sight. They are currently working on releasing an original SVD-63 as their starting point, while also replicating the Russian SAG Mark I chassis system for anyone who wants a modern rail system that free floats the entire barrel. This chassis has been challenging to obtain in the US due to SureShot USA's lack of focus on making SureShot SVD accessories based on their Russian counterparts, as most American SVD owners are collectors who prefer to keep their SVDs in original military configuration.
I'm Andrew from Insite Armory, and we're at SHOT Show 2025 this week, and we're introducing our Insite version of the Dragunov SVD. We are based out of Houston, Texas, and we have built this rifle from the ground up. It's been a long go. It's been at this now for between 4.5 and 5.5 years, and quite diligently over the last year and a half to get this out and introduce this week. The entire rifle, everything from the gas block, barrel, receiver, bolt head, carrier, all made in-house, and we're going to bring it out with a target date of the fourth quarter with an approximate price, retail MSRP of $4,000. It will be chambered in the 7.62x54R, and then later on also the 308 Winchester and likely a 6.5 Creedmoor. Once we get the supply chain sorted out and we're shipping rifles and we've got a nice smooth assembly line, we do have a few other projects that are potentially on the books, potentially a folding model, and maybe a few other things, but yes, stay tuned because we do have a few other projects in the loop.
The firearm still has some ways to go before it is ready for release, and the examples they had on display had some surplus components installed like the furniture, handguard retainers, and various small parts. All things considered, the fact that this rifle will have all the military components that many of the previous imports lacked, like the correct barrel length, military-style furniture, gas regulator, and so on. I think this will be a great shooter's piece, and hopefully in the future they will offer parts for those of us who need conversions done, or have kits and various other SVD projects that need to be completed. Next up, we have the Nambu project. This one is very much still a work in progress, but it looks like they are making some good headway into a product release. They have indicated it will be striker fired, but for those of us with an SOT, Conversion parts will be available, which is super cool. In general, Japanese firearms are fairly rare and hard to come by in the United States. So it's cool seeing a project trying to bring one into production. In order to use easy-to-obtain magazines, the creator of this project, the Gearhead Gunsmith, has opted to use PPS 43 magazines, which are easy to obtain, and keep the 8mm Nambu look to the gun while being able to use commonly available rounds like 9mm or 7.62 Tokarev. I'm excited to see where they take this project next. At their booth, they also had the M1337, which is a 3D printed belt-fed crank-fired gun that uses AR-15 barrels and internals. This is something I have been following online as I want to print one myself to use as a blank fire prop and then convert to a post sample using a motor. And it was really cool seeing one printed and on display in person. Finally, we have our honorable mentions. Most of these guns are made by large manufacturers, but these are the ones I found to be cool. First up, we have the FN Evolys. It is an extremely lightweight belt-fed machine gun, thanks to the use of 3D printed parts. In fact, at 11 pounds, the firearm can be easily fired from the shoulder. The guys at the FN booth were really cool and fun to talk to, and the guy mentioned they would definitely release a civilian model if they won the US Gov contract, which I hope they do. Next is the Laugo Remux. This is a carry version of the original Laugo Alien, which features a gas piston-delayed blowback operating mechanism. This design allows for the lowest bore axis on a handgun. It is one of the best shooting handguns on the market, and in my opinion, the best stock trigger of all time, especially since it features an internal hammer-fired mechanism. Next up, we have the Zastava M72. Zastava is finally bringing the M72 RPK to the commercial market, which is pretty neat. In the past, the best way was to build a parts kit. I have a kit build myself, and it's really nice that they are bringing the M72 with most of the original Yugo military features to the market. Although, it does have furniture that is closer to the M76. So, if you wanted it for Yugoslav LARP, you would need to swap that out. They are also making a 3D printed suppressor based on the Russian PBS. This should give us more PBS-style suppressor clones on the market. Next, we have the PSA VUK. I only put this gun in because I actually hate it. There have been people online saying that PSA is trying to copy the AK-12, but the gun is clearly based on the Kalashnikov concern AK-521. They copied the overall aesthetic of the 521, but with a weird AR-15 style lower and fire control group, and then added an AK folding stock mechanism into it. The only part of the gun that was actually correct was the stock, which is a Gen 2 AK-12 stock. However, it should be noted that the stock was made by Sure Shot USA, who have connections to Russia through their parent company in Europe and their Russian branch. If only PSA could do the same, and give us what we actually want, a clone-correct AK-521. Next, we have the SNT K2. Formerly known as Daewoo, SNT is looking to reintroduce these rifles to the American market late this year. We signed up to be on their dealers list, and hopefully we will be able to order some around June. It's been a very long time since we have had Daewoo products in the US, and I couldn't be more excited to see more come in. And finally, what better way to end this video than with an MP7? As many of you know, I was one of the first individuals with the Tommy-built T7 and released the first T7 review. After release, the T7 continued to be plagued with issues, and ultimately, Tommy decided to hand off the project to an unknown company called UO Arms, who is attempting to relaunch the T7 as the NT7. It was fairly strange, as UO Arms showed up randomly on the last day of the show and placed a Tommy-built T7 on a display. The example they had on display had most of the issues the T7 had, like poor fit and finish, flashing on the plastics, the stock did not work, and the bolt would drop while you attempted to insert the magazine. But it was one of the original T7s they had on display, and not one of their redesigned NT7s. So time will tell if they will be able to bring this cursed project back to life. And so those were all the cool projects that we found interesting at SHOT Show this year. Well, see you next time!